I've certainly learned 4 songs in that once you go down the FEUERSCHWANZ train, you don't really wish to depart, which I would say is a shared experience, as many of you know, with the European rock and metal landscape, at the very least in how I look at it. I find it's one of the more advantageous talent offerings, or at least the centers of where you find the most talent, whether it be emerging or well-known, just exploding right now as an industry. And to be fair, there are other geographical locations around the globe that offer such competent talents as well, and I've spotlighted many, and many are incoming, a large number based on many of your recommendations of talents I've not yet had the grace of humoring. But FEUERSCHWANZ, by comparison, has been, I would say, the most dominant name, as I've said before, whether it be in looking at associated projects to some of their members or incoming artists from other endeavors, or just maybe in passing of, you might like this group, because they're such a mainstay, and they've got quite the fan base, certainly. I knew I would happen upon them eventually. I'm grateful that I did. I said this as much with when I first covered D'Artagnan, and many of you know how much I love them. German folk rock, if you're not familiar, and I would easily recommend all their pieces. I have every song, I think, that for the most part, that they've ever released, at least in their original songs, on my phone right now. I kept that promise. I spent a lot of money to do so, but I didn't mind it, because D'Artagnan is explicit, and FEUERSCHWANZ is like the rock version, or more so, it's more the metal personality. It's got a lot of D'Artagnan similarities, though. I am very impressed. 4 songs in Das Aufdegebot's collection. Some of you, as I said, might be taking a first approach with this group, and I think you're going to quite like them. As I've said many times, that is a broad statement with European talents generally. And music, in specific form, as many of you know, it's a true passion in my life, and I've wanted to bring it on for several years as more of a mainstay presence. I've had that goal since the beginning, and over 2023, we're evolving quite well, especially on a sub-goal of mine, which has emerged in the process of bringing music on, which is in first impressions. And in Europe, that's always an inspired space to humor. And I love how music can bring about an effective fellowship. In comparison to other entertainment ventures, it is very unique in that respect. So if you're somebody that is taking these steps of wanting to explore talent that is unfamiliarized to you, or maybe you know FEUERSCHWANZ. In this case, you're getting a variety of perspectives depending on your angle. You might be a longtime fan, and so you're hearing the perspective of someone who's still relatively young in his days and has not heard every piece of theirs, and so you're getting his perspective at least on works that you've, I'm sure, been a longtime fan of. Or for some of you who are taking a simultaneous journey with me, or maybe it's a bit opposite in that I'm now a bit familiarized to FEUERSCHWANZ, but perhaps you're not. So you're where I was 4 songs ago in total. But I like taking this journey with you, as many of you know. It truly is an honor to be able to spotlight so many talents on this channel where art is appreciated and at its highest capacity, whereas in other spaces it's in other entertainment ventures, not so much in music, but in maybe other languages and stylizations, it's in a wanting state. Music for me is always delivered, and whether it be in longtime favorites or fresh introductions, and FEUERSCHWANZ certainly qualifies. So let's broaden out my library, and we're now looking at Im Bach des WALS is the name of the track. I'm pretty sure I'm trying to get the pronunciation correct. Forgive me if it's slightly off. And I believe that's translated to, on rough look, in the belly of the whale. In the belly of the whale? Oh, that's hilarious. Is this like I would need to look at the lyrics on translation. That's funny. That brings up childhood memories of like that old VeggieTales number from the Newsboys for the Jonah movie. Yeah, we're digging back with that one. Like, I was 6, 7. I was younger than that, I think. When did that come out? I would have been like 4 or 5. Anywho, wow. If this is like a reinvention, I don't think it is. But like, if this was like a Newsboys German cover, that'd be hilarious. I'd have to find that out later, and I'll probably correct the record in post if it's not, just for clarification. Because, I studied Spanish in school, not German, but I find that really funny. Anywho, Im Bach des WALS, I'm going to go ahead and cue up the main video that accompanied said piece. I'm sure it'll be a fun treat. And if you've not humored my coverage before concerning not just European talents, but European songs spoken in a foreign language, this is more specialized than what I normally do, in that I like to provide the lyrics to suit listener taste. But because this is in German, I'm assuming, at least the name is, I will be providing you not only the original lyrics in their German form, but also a rough translation that, forgive me if there's maybe certain inaccuracies, I do try my best, but again, I studied Spanish. I gotta say, though, it's fun to get, I love the feeling of experiencing different cultures, especially in the field of foreign languages. It adds this charming quality to the music that I consult, especially in regards to European presences. And with FEUERSCHWANZ and D'Artagnan as well, that added a fun dimension, and we're going to continue that, of course, with the former attributions, because that's who we're spotlighting. More FEUERSCHWANZ. I'm sure many of you are excited, because I know a lot of you love that name, and I've enjoyed them too thus far. 5 tracks in, well, this being the 5th, 4 so far in total. I'm having a great time. But is this like a Newsboys cover? That's going to be freaking funny. I don't know. Probably not. Beautiful cinematography. It's almost like a nature documentary. Metal foundation applied to a ballad tone. Maybe I spoke too soon. It's an exquisite video thus far. Yeah, this is definitely not the Newsboys number, but it's just funny on the name. I just looked up a rough translation just to make sure. Nice swings on the orchestral side, more of a symphonic drive to that. Love that element. Exquisite visualizer. Mixed with the German rock foundation is just... love the range of the piece. I'm assuming that's Ben. Leave it to him, well, I forget his name, what he goes on for FEUERSCHWANZ, forgive me. I need to refresh my memory, but leave it to him to bring in some bagpipe integration. I believe that's what I just saw. I certainly hear it. And good riff structure on that. That particular section has just so much personality it adds onto the piece. This isn't your normal ballad seafaring anthem. I really like the scope of it. Everything's working for me with this song. Yeah, it's such a creative landscape. I like these interruptions with the chant. I mean, again, it adds such an interesting layer to it. I just think the excavator kind of took me out of at least an older feeling. Like, I kind of watch this video and feel like it's a bit ancient and maybe on delivery. Maybe not entirely, at least with the ship. Maybe there's some... It certainly feels a bit older, though. I like that presence, but you see an excavator, like, wow, we're like really right back in a modern throttle. More industrial than I thought it was. It was admittedly a bit cast adrift in time. This is song, again, like I said, on feeling, it just takes me in that space. Great pattern for a conclusion. Nice, slowed pace of that plucking. works very well. And it adds to a very endearing visualizer that I'm not used to in terms of spotlighting whales. Not the country, the animal. I find that kind of funny. So you'll forgive me if, again, going in, my assumption was that, in part, I mean, I doubted it would go like this, but you think perhaps of FEUERSCHWANZ, even if you're just used to some of the tracks by name. They do an assortment of, from my understanding, original pieces and covers. And we'll be getting to a number of the covers in future coverage with this group. Because again, once you're going down the FEUERSCHWANZ train, you don't want to leave. You'll forgive me if perhaps, again, for a second, I thought about that Newsboys song. And I'm like, okay, well, does it fit in the landscape of covers? I mean, that's not the most mainstream song, at least in secular circles, from my understanding. Because Newsboys, if you're not familiar with them, they're a long-standing, they've been around for a number of years, but long-standing Christian contemporary group. Or maybe you could say Christian rock as well. They're kind of in that atmosphere. But they're more along the contemporary lines. Pop, rock, contemporary, kind of in that space. Anyway, so they did that song for the Joan of VeggieTales movie like a number of years ago, and you read the title in the belly of the whale, and it's like, that's the same thing they did. But then you look at translation, and on sound, you're like, no, this is not the same piece. So it's not the cover. This is more of like a whale anthem, which this video sits in a very interesting space. As I said, you know, it's like, many of you know my work, perhaps, and you're familiarized to the pattern of artistic endeavors that I consult, mainstays being, let's say, for example, cinema. So this has the appearance of a nature documentary, partly when it starts. I mean, the filming on that whale is quite gorgeous. But it's got a slower pace, and it certainly fits the ballad atmosphere with a nice metal foundation. Again, I like that. I like that vast feeling, right? It's not as, and granted, I'd be fine if it maybe illustrated differently, but I like that grander feel, especially on the symphonic elements, on that one interruption in the verse, the main verse is really in between the different line sections. Quite exquisite. A lot of personality. I love the vocals, and it's just fun, by the way, as I said, specifically with German music. It's just fun to humor it. Though I am very well aware, as I was listening to this piece, I'm like, as I've said with many of you, I appreciate the fellowship component that music oftentimes will elicit, especially in the context of this channel, because as many of you know, as I've said before, my music tastes do put me in an isolated space among my peer group. So my face-to-face relationships, as I'm watching this, I'm realizing in the back of my mind, no one's going to have a connection point with me in regard to Im Bach des Wals. It just won't happen. So again, I'm in a very unique situation here, but I'm appreciating good work. As I've said many times, I don't mind being isolated or an anomaly, because I view, and I don't say that in any way to be self-demeaning, I see it as an element of strength, quite frankly, because I'm the one, and not to be too boastful or prideful, at least in how I sound right now, but I'm the one who's come across these many different types of strengths within the music landscape, specifically on European attribution, and I put a lot of the credit on you in regards to providing me with said introductions. I wouldn't have known about half these groups if it hadn't been for the endless supply of FEUERSCHWANZ regard, especially note connection to D'Artagnan. The door was paid for me, and I've been very happy to take the road down with this group. And of course, that will continue alongside many of you as well, who perhaps are consulting this group on a first impression. I'm sure that many of you came to like FEUERSCHWANZ, and now you're curious to hear more. I mean, they have quite a range. This is a little slower in comparison to some of their other pieces, but it's just as fun to enjoy. And again, I love that musketeer type feel with it. I mean, again, maybe that's more so D'Artagnan's thing, at least from my understanding, at least what's been stressed. I mean, maybe I've seen FEUERSCHWANZ get regarded, they're more like medieval, at least. I mean, certainly have a mythic appearance to them, and it fits like a historical fantasy side in viewing. But it does remind me a lot of D'Artagnan. It's just the harsher version, in part, and maybe again the metal emphasis. And it's a lot of fun to enjoy their work. It really is. I love this group so much, and it's been wonderful to engage with their talents, and an honor to recognize them on this channel, and part of promising talents that many of you, I'm sure, if you haven't heard them before, are just as impressed by. And again, as I said, mainstay presence, evolution on that incoming. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are down below if you do wish to entertain your thoughts and share those with, or publicly with us. What were your thoughts on approaching this group, and what angle do you take? Longtime fan? First presence? I'd love to hear about it down below. I think Im Bach des Wals, though again, I didn't go down the path I surmised at first. Well, that's not fair to say. I didn't think it would go down that way, but it's more an original piece, at least from my understanding. So while it's not a Newsboys cover, just find that funny on the translation. I'm like, not what I expected to see. I didn't go in knowing that. So that was an in the moment, what? I like him BAUCH das WALS, if I'm pronouncing that right. I do try. I make an effort to get my German pronunciations correct, though half the time I don't know what half of these words mean. I am learning, though. There are common terms that are coming up to me, especially on the translation act. I'm learning a lot through having to input the lyrics myself. And again, I don't mind doing that. I like giving you complete takes. But I find the piece quite charming. Again, it has a slower presence from what I'm used to, but the presentation is very grand. It's not just on the visualizer component, but the scope of the piece, different instrumental elements and part of certain organized breaks, with the symphonic element, the bagpipe integration. That was very enjoyable, very D'Artagnan. Very German from my understanding. I love the personality of European groups, especially German ones. And FEUERSCHWANZ has 5 tracks in now, satisfied completely in that regard. I'm sure in the future it will be the same story. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.